Good morning. As we begin this second Sunday of Advent, I invite you to take a deep breath, to slow down, to be aware of where you are, to be here now, with each other and with God. So please, take a slow, deep breath in, and slowly exhale. Thank you. On October 9th, St. Joan of Arc hosted Shir Tikvah as they celebrated their Jewish tradition of High Holy Days, Yom Kippur. I was excited to welcome them into St. Joan of Arc's beloved community, and was also very excited to experience their sacred traditions of faith. I was humbled by their appreciation of being here at St. Joan of Arc. Yet it was I who was profoundly grateful and forever changed for their presence. Because of them being here, a spiritual fire that was smoldering in my heart burst into flames. It began as I was standing in the Welcome Center, welcoming those from Shir Tikvah's holy community, when I heard a glorious voice leading the prayer. And although I had no idea what the words meant, Spirit was calling me to come closer. I was pulled by the heartstrings of a woman with a radiant light casting from her, singing and swaying with a baby on her chest. In that moment of connection, I was deeply saddened and isolated because I was witnessing her stand in her truth in a sacred space, our sacred space, where I cannot. Yet, in my next breath, God rushed in joy and elation, because I knew I was witnessing a woman sharing and fulfilling her prophetic calling, preaching a sermon to her sacred community with the support of her Jewish tradition in our sacred space. It was a vision of a possibility I did not know I needed, a vision of what could be in our Catholic tradition. And so I actively wait and hope through the radical love and fierceness of God. I wait, knowing that God waits with me. Poet Jan Richardson says, "I cannot tell you how the light comes. What I know is that it is more ancient than imagining, that it travels across an expanding space to reach us, that it loves searching out for what is hidden, what is lost, what is forgotten, in peril and in pain, that it has a fondness for the body, for finding its way toward flesh, for tracing the edges of form, for shining forth through the eye, the hand, the heart. I cannot tell you how the light comes, but that it does, that it will, that it works its way into the deepest darkness that enfolds you, though it may seem long in coming and arrive in a shape you did not foresee. And so, may we this day turn ourselves toward it. May we lift our faces to the sky. May we lift our faces to let it find us. May we bend our bodies to follow the arc it makes. May we open and open more and open still to the blessed light that comes. We are waiting for the light. Who has the light?
I'm uncertain if I have the light, but I'm honored to be here. I'm Michael Latz. I'm the lead rabbi at Shir Tikvah, and I come today with expressions of deep gratitude to Cynthia, to your beautiful and wonderful priests, to Steve and to Dennis, to Julie, to your entire staff and community for welcoming us during our High Holy Days. When I was a young kid growing up in New Hope, there was a Catholic family down the block, and I was invited to the young boy's first grade party, where he and his mother proceeded to run their hands through my hair, searching for my Jewish horns. Yeah. So being able to pray in your space has done a bit of healing, and I thank you. There's no horns, it just covers the bald spot. And see, at the synagogue, they just give me a courtesy laugh, but you're actually like laughing, so thank you. In Jewish tradition, we celebrate very soon Hanukkah. It is not the Jewish Christmas. It has nothing to do with Christmas. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Hanukkah has nothing to do with it. But it is an extraordinary story of miracles. And the rabbis of the Talmud, the first rabbis to emerge after the destruction of the temple by the Romans in 70 CE, they didn't like us either. There was a great debate. You see, after the temple had been destroyed, there was enough oil that was left to light the Chanukiah, the Hanukkah menorah. They thought for just a day, but it turns out that it lasted for 8. Well, the rabbis liked to argue with each other. It's what we did before we had our iPhones. And Rabbi Shammai, a bit of a curmudgeon, said that the way that you should light the Chanukiah, the Hanukkah menorah, is that the first night you should have 8 candles lit, and then the second night 7, and then 6, and then 5, and then 4. He was rather practical. We started out with this much oil, it was finite, and it continued to shrink down. But Hillel, the wise rabbi, disagreed. And he proclaimed that no, on the first night of Hanukkah you should have 1 candle, the second night a second, the third night a third. And they debated back and forth until the rabbis followed the law of Hillel. Why did they do that? Because they believed you could never diminish one of God's miracles, that you should always grow the light. And I want to thank you, St. Joan of Arc, for continuing to grow the light. It's nice that Shir Tikvah has such a close sister congregation, both physically close and spiritually close, because we're in a time in which it feels to me that a pervasive darkness and infected despair is spreading throughout the world by people who are making billions off of trying to get us to be afraid of one another. And you're opening up your arms and your hearts and your building to us so that we could pray was a spreading of the light, because we know that when we do good in the world, when we share the light, it doesn't diminish, it grows. And so when we join together as two communities striving to treat immigrants and people living in sanctuary with dignity, we grow the light. When we work together to end structural racism and gun violence and to treat women like they're actually human beings, we grow the light. When we fight for health care together, we grow the light. When we try to make our city and our communities inhabitable for our children and their children after them, when we say that GLBTQ people should be treated fairly and decently, none of us are diminished. Each of us is exalted in God's glorious light. And so I thank you, and after your service today, the Shir Tikvah bakers have gathered to grow the light and to make your stomachs much larger. There are going to be a lot of sweet treats as a small way of reflecting the light that you gave to us back to you. And on behalf of all of us, I really cannot thank you enough for treating us with such radical hospitality and deep love. If this is what being a good Christian means, the world's in good shape. Thank you.
God's dream for the world is us. God's dream for the world is us. We are the light to one another in the darkness. We wait, fully awake, fully aware, without compliance, without complacency. We become stronger and more fully human. And no matter who wants to oppress us or to silence us, we can be the signs of hope that never, never go away. Amen.